We could probably go ahead and get started here. Before I'm going to kind of do things a little bit backwards, just because right after our kind of welcoming, we're going to go right into our survey analysis. So make sure you do have your own laptop and you are signed in as an individual. That way you can get set up in your breakout rooms. So if you're in a group with somebody, you'll want to sign into your own into the Zoom meeting under your own computer or device or whatever you're using. So I wanted to give ANA the opportunity, if they would like, no requirement, to just say a few words to reflect kind of so far how it's been going, and maybe some well wishes on how the rest of the convening might go.
Well, good morning, everyone. I don't want to speak on behalf of the team. I want to offer them an opportunity to speak too if they want to, but I just thought yesterday was really good. I didn't know how it was going to go. I think we learned, I especially kind of like the last hour where you guys were like totally geeking on your language development skills and ideas. And I think you really got energized by that. And so that was great. I also enjoyed the Cherokee presentations as well, to learn a little bit more about how they actually engage in the community, and the impact, how the language revitalization really is almost like life revitalization too. It's just changing lives. So kudos to all you on here and to your colleagues who aren't on here who are doing incredible work to save your languages. So, and we're going to get more and more of that in the next couple of days. So thank you.
Anyone else from ANA want to say anything?
No, I ditto everything that Mia said, and I really appreciate you, Cree and Maria, coordinating everything, and really enjoyed the presentations and like what Mia said, hearing from participants from Cherokee was very inspiring, and learned a lot yesterday. And I'm sure we'll have great presentations today as well and the rest of the week. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosia.
Oh my God.
Well, white hippies naqsqailu kualchiapa panatsqalqau tultali kinlim tali yayatakas chkultan qilqiltan tet ul qitstisbus. Welcome back, everybody. I am happy that you all have come back here, and I just love this work in the language. And I was really surprised yesterday. I did feel, just some of that energy that we get often when we're together. It's not the same, but I still was able to feel it, and I still do get that. I see, especially those of you who are, comfortable enough to share your screen and to be on video. And when I see people, reacting and smiling, and that really helps me, with participating in this. So I appreciate that. And But yeah, no, it was good, and I hope today is just as good. We're going to be going into a breakout session here just in a couple seconds. So for this one, we did kind of go over this. We had some pre-working sessions with the cohorts prior to this, just to get everybody kind of ready for this session. But for those of you who weren't able to participate in that, what's going to happen is we're all going to go into breakout rooms. We have everybody assigned. And so there's going to be myself, Jim, Maria, Tom, and Brandon. We're all going to moderate each room, and we're going to record the session. And so you all have survey results in your handouts, in your folders here. And so if you're one of those people, I prefer looking at hard copies. It's hard for me to look at a digital, especially when you have multiple pages. Um, so we're all going to be kind of looking through those surveys. And during this session, what I would recommend, we're going to have about an hour and 15 minutes. And so during this session, you all are going to kind of first step is to organize your guys' selves. You know, who's going to be kind of leading the discussion, because as the moderators, we're not going to necessarily lead. We're just going to facilitate whenever anything comes up. We'll help that way. But you all will organize yourselves in terms of maybe somebody who's kind of taking the notes, or if there's somebody who's more familiar with like programs like Canva, or any kind of survey analysis, visual development. If anybody's more familiar with that, you know, they might want to take on that role as far as developing survey visuals. So that first initial time is going to be a little bit on organizing your group. And then there's also in the chat here, Tom has posted the surveys as well. If you want to look at them digitally, that might be helpful if you want to copy paste to have the digital versions up as well. So any questions before we release you to your
Keep
assignment?
talking. I have to reassign everybody because my list didn't come through all the way.
Oh no, I was wondering how that was going to happen.
So I'm assigning right now.
No problem.
So can somebody send me the surveys so I can print them out to my email?
They're in the chat. If you the most recent chat post, there's a link there.
Okay.
If you click on that, that will take you to the surveys. And if you can print them out from there, or you can just look at them from there.
I'm on my phone, so I'm trying to get them to my email. So let's see.
They're on the ANA NLCC Convening 2020 page.
Okay.
Right there.
So there's also on the on that page our web portal for the convening. There's let me copy and paste that link as well. There's like the directions are in there. So once you're in your groups, if you get, you know, kind of confused on what's going on, those directions are there. So it has the moderator or monitors, keep saying that. I always actually like making mistakes in English, because then it makes me not feel so bad when I make mistakes in my language, because I'm like, well, I make mistakes in English too, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so there's a description, there's directions. There's going to be probably more than 5 to 6 people. We'll see how it kind of goes. But this is a role-playing exercise. So what you're just going to look at these surveys, and you're going to pretend that whoever's all in your breakout room, you're going to pretend that you all are a language program. You guys, if you guys want to go all out and name your program and, you know, do all that, that's totally fine. I recommend making it as fun and novel as you can. So then from there, you're going to decide what these survey results are for. Because they can be towards informing your next event. They can be towards requesting funding. They can, whatever you want to use them for. So the monitors also kind of know, you know, the general purpose of this activity. So if there's further question as we're going, the monitors are there to support that as well. Any other questions?
There was a question in the chat box for how long do people have?
We have an hour and 15 minutes. So it starts here in about 1 minute. So
But do you want us to come back after like an hour, or?
We will call you back.
So report. Okay.
The Zoom will call you back, and it should give you a heads up. If not, we'll we'll give you guys at least a 5-minute heads up to come back. And then tomorrow we'll report out. There's a session. That way it's not, so pressure to like do all this and then talk about it. So today's just organizing yourselves, disseminating the results, and then trying to put it into a visual graph or a word clouds or whatever you're. How we looking, Maria?
I think I got everybody sorted out.
Okay.
And those of you who do not go into a room, you'll be here in the main room. And so you'll be doing your, we have 5 rooms set up. So the main room is where you guys will be at, you'll see. And once I hit open all rooms, everybody will move to their various rooms. And so when you get there, I think if you have questions and you need a host, then and then that way we can go ahead and move forward with that. So,
and Maria, this is Brandon. Before you do that, did you see my note about Tom in the chat?
About making a co-host?
Yes, please.
Sure. Do I have to go outside of here to make a co-host?
In the our participants list.
Okay, let me look there.
What happened to me?
Also, yep.
Okay.
Just a quick note. If for any reason you're looking at there's 29 surveys, but if for any reason you're like, let's use 20, or like if you're looking at it and realizing that maybe it's too much for the allotted time, feel free to use whatever feels realistic. You don't have to use all of them.
Okay, did that work? I'm sorry about that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Any last minute things? We're all sitting on pins and needles. Is this gonna work? We hope this works. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Make sure we all get to our right rooms, okay?
All right.
And here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hi.
Sorry, I stole your.
Yeah, I thought I pressed the wrong button or something.
Oh, well, I couldn't find you anywhere, probably because you were in the main room and I couldn't see. I was able to jump to the rooms, but not back to the main room.
Oh.
And so I needed to consolidate Tom and Brandon's room because Tom only had 2 people and Brandon only had a couple. And I was like, "Where's Maria?"
And you couldn't raise the help.
Oh no, Okay. I forgot about that, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just thinking, wait a minute, because right when you did that, Sean was telling me Serena couldn't get back in, and I was gonna try to send her over there, but she never made it back in. I
never could. Yeah, I saw the message, and I never could find it. Find her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's I don't know if she made it back in yet.
I'm not sure.
Let's see.
She said she hasn't yet. She's trying to get back in.
I know. So just a heads up, Sean, once we're all settled here, you're on for your inspirational moment. I'm not sure if you want to preface, I know you have the video, if you wanted to preface that at all, but we'll go ahead and in about 1 minute we'll start that.
Trying to do this survey analysis.
How was it? I either thought this activity was going to be like super amazing or really messy.
It was fun.
Good. Glad.
Yeah, I thought we did pretty good as far as like getting everybody worked on theirs, and I just did like a little mini training of what you did on your video.
We would have been lost without Victoria.
Okay. Awesome.
So, but we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think it's.
Well, like, just, for tomorrow, we have that presentation. Everybody's going to present out on it. And if you don't have like a product or a visual ready to go, don't stress. Even just talking about the process on how working together, that could be part of your presenting out. Maybe it's not the argument of the results. Maybe it's just talking about, stuff that the process and what you guys learned working together as a team. And
I need to say,
so just some thoughts. Don't feel too stressed if you're like, we didn't even finish what we were doing. That's fine. So it looks like everybody should be back. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sean and Tom.
I'll just say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Tom will be screen sharing on behalf of Sean. So go ahead, Sean.
Okay. What I'm going to show, or what they're going to show, is a little 11-minute movie that a student did. There was a grad student out of MSU that needed a project, and my wife's father-in-law, or my wife's father. That sounded weird. My wife's father-in-law. That would be my dad, right? But my father-in-law, he was the head of Indian Studies. So she wanted to do something about Native American languages. So they sent the grad student to him, and then he's told about our project, and then she got in touch with my wife. And so this was about 2006, and it's an 11-minute movie about somewhat of what we did here. And that was actually our first full year of having this school. And that was my first year of actually teaching the language to anybody. I had been learning it here and there throughout my life. And then the previous 2 years of this movie, I was more in depth with elders. But this was actually the first time that I took the helm as teacher. And so yeah, 2006, and you'll see a little bit about what we do here at our immersion school.
When we had our first child, Shanlin, I wanted her to know the language, more than I had known growing up, and so I just started coming back more frequently, visiting with elders that still knew the language, still knew stories, because it was more than just like a project for me. It was very important to who we are and what we're about. It makes us stronger as a people, and I wanted to give that to my daughter. I just started it, and ironically I started it the day after Columbus Day, October 13th at that time.
Blank itasinitan nihato means, how do you say such and such a word in English? Nihato means English or white man. Reviewing this year, which is technically the fourth year of this, and this was the first full day immersion school of of the Grovon language, or the White Clay language?
Currently we have 11 students. We have 7 third graders and 4 second graders. There's a familiar saying among Indian people that you have to walk in 2 worlds, you know, the Euro-American world and the Indian world. Well, here at this school, I believe that we can make those 2 worlds into 1 world. You're not a fractured person anymore, you're whole and you walk in 1 world. This is your world. Language is always changing, and so of course we'll adapt things where a lot of our things get appropriated and exploited, like language or religion or, you know, crafts and things like that. Well, we also appropriate the mainstream and kind of bring it into our children's world.
Who's in a pineapple? Who lives in a pineapple? Underneath the blue sea. Underneath the blue sea. SpongeBob. SpongeBob. SquarePants. SquarePants. SpongeBob. SquarePants. SpongeBob. SquarePants. Ah. Just go.
See, this is what they need to learn how to read, animate intransitive. And then so that's why I try to make learning fun, and I created this bingo game, what they keep telling you about. Everybody seems to love it. So like we'll play bingo, and I say the sound, and then they equate it with the letter, like a theta, and different things like that.
How's it backwards? Let's see how well you can listen. Maybe. Duh. Duh. What's That's a T.
Very Aaniiih. Grovon language, I think, has been hit extremely hard as far as losing our native speakers. We're so strong as a people, but today we have maybe, I would say, like 4 to 5 people who are of that generation that grew up speaking Aaniiih as their first language.
My dad spoke it, but he would not speak to us kids. And we would ask him, Dad, what's this? And it was fear. He didn't want us kids getting beaten or hurt from the Catholic school we were attending.
I think it was innate for them, and just to believe that it was so evil that they couldn't speak it, so they never taught any of their younger generation or their family to speak it. And I think it's important to bring it back because it's essential in every part of every heritage, every culture.
If I can shape my daughter's lives and help them become a whole person again, you know, and I'm talking philosophically, like because of the American Indian Holocaust through the boarding school era, just really within the last 100 years, and kind of heal that within our people and heal it within our children, I think they will have a really nice life, and that's all I really want for my daughters.
He really enjoys it. He enjoys it more than his other school. His brother wishes he could come here, but like I said, he didn't reach the age limit.
We don't have enough funds to teach every child on the reservation. We don't have enough funds. We don't have the teachers, the trained teachers that know the language to provide this to different ages of children. And then there are 2 tribes, which I'm a member of both, the Nakoda and the Aaniiih. The Nakoda, at this point, do not have an immersion school. And that was a struggle for me personally because I'm both and I'm proud of both. But I see that the White Clay language is more endangered.
I just like to thank Sean and Lynette for bringing, for doing this and for, seeing where it was lost. It was going to be lost. They went out, they got educated, and they come back and they see, they're from here, they're enrolled here, and they seen it was dying. And where we lived here all our lives and we just went on about our business and we didn't even realize how it was dying.
I'm not fluent, but I'm learning, and that's probably the biggest challenge. And knowing if I'm saying the word correctly. I mean, I study our tapes, I listen to elders speak, and just worrying. Maybe the challenges that I feel is wondering if I'm saying them right, or wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Wonder if I'm teaching them right. Hoping that our language is saved. I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Nah.
We're involved with the kids. We come over on Tuesdays and Thursdays and we do the traditional games. These are our games. These were here forever. And we need to take a little bit to go back and bring some of that back.
There's a little girl in the class. Her father had came to visit me, and he was so excited because he was using the language with me. And he's like, I listen to my daughter every night, and I just love to hear what she has learned throughout the day.
I teach see you. I teach him see you, like manners and stuff like that. And he knows how to say. He knows to count to 10. Come on.
They're trying to get it so that they can be, talk to each other in a classroom, use their words on each other, because that's the only way they're going to learn, Then they'll be able to go home and in the community, and they can help our people that way.
I'm picking Grovont up, my 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She tells me Indian words, and I have to ask her dad what they mean, and I'm learning a lot. Like, she calls her mother Na'a, and she calls me Nabithawa, which means grandpa, and her grandma Niwa. I didn't know this up to about a year ago.
This is the last stand for the Aaniiih language, and so far we're winning it. We're winning the battle, we're winning the war. I would want community members to know, and other tribes, that all this language immersion school takes is a dream and hard work, and anyone can do it. That's what I would want them to know.
Download this episode and more Terra at lifeonterra.com.
Yeah, so that's all. And in there too, that was my dad teaching drum making and things like that. So they, as you've seen, they learned other aspects of our culture within our school.
Awesome. That was a really cool video. Those kids they're funny.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me miss it.
They're all in college.
Are they?
Yeah, they're all, a couple of them might have, I think a couple of them are done with their bachelor's by now. But I used to think, why couldn't all those little kids just stay that age and be that sweet? Now they're not.
Yeah.
They come back. Then.
Right. Aw. Well, alrighty, we'll go ahead and we have Yurok's inspirational moment too. Thank you, Sean. That was an awesome video. So either Victoria or James, whoever wants to speak, or if you guys are taking turns, I'll give it over to you guys now.
I wanted to share a story, but I don't know how that's going to work if I still sound like a robot, or maybe I should try my singing career out. I don't know.
So far, so good. We could hear you just fine.
All right. So I wanted to share a story. A lot of the stories that I learned, I got the privilege from just learning from I worked with 10 fluent first language speakers that are no longer here. And they're the ones that I learned a lot of the stories I use in my classroom and I share in my classroom. And a lot of these stories are not published. For some reason, when I read stories that were published, I can't remember them as much as the stories I heard from, my teachers and everything. And even if I didn't write them down, I just remember them. So I wanted to share the story. How am I sounding so far? All right. So this story is Aaniiih Khan Kukala Mrs. Guchuchis Kalasan. This is a long time ago when the animals and the birds and the trees and the plants, they acted like us humans. It was before us humans were here. They were our first teachers. And so Kuawa Kuchuchis Kicha Hotmanot Kicha Le Peth when not. There's this little bird and he broke his wing and he couldn't fly. Masa saw like a numi per couldn't fly down south with his family for the wintertime. And he was really sad. He couldn't go with his family. And he wanted to find a place to stay for the winter. So he started going through the woods. As he started going through the woods, Kupuna map, Akunumi na rao wachiship. And so he came across the dogwood tree. And the dogwood tree had all these beautiful white flowers. And so that little bird says, "Are you a quee puna map? Kicha hotmanot cock na wana kosala sanki na skeet ma kawe squin." He said, "Hello." He said, "I broke my wing and I was wondering if I could stay in your branches for the winter." And that puna map with his beautiful white flowers, he looked at him, he says, "Kel kimmerlutwe china nu sawtos chotni no wapad neck aku numinara wachiship kel kimmerlutwe." He says, "Go on, get out of here. Look at you. You're so ugly." He said, "You're so ugly." He's all, "Look at me and look how beautiful I am with my beautiful white flowers." He says, "I don't want you staying in my branches." He said, "You'll make me look ugly." And so the awaku chikini chuchich kicha kim son ninep. That little bird was really sad. He started walking into the woods farther. The farther he walked into the woods, he came upon the hotmanat. He came across the tanuk acorn tree. And she was really busy. It was her first time ever producing acorns. So she was producing all these acorns and they were falling down and she was gathering them up. And so the little bird says, "Are you qui hotmana? Kosalasanki na and he wasn't even finished talking. And she says, "Shall chi call her sir serpic, tain on her sir serpic, new sawtoss. Shall tain on her sir serpic." She says, "Go on, get out of here. I'm so busy. I don't have any time to help you. Go on. You're bothering me. I have so much stuff to do." And so by this time, Numi Kim Saninip Kuawa Kuchuchi, that little bird was so sad. It was real sad. And he started putting his head down. And so he put his head down and he started Hegel, he started walking deeper into the woods. And the deeper into the woods he became, the darker it became. Deeper in the woods he walked, the darker it became. And all of a sudden he went bam, and he ran into what he thought was a giant wall. By the time his eyes adjust from crying and getting used to the darkness, he realized that he didn't walk into a giant wall. He actually walked into the key. That's the redwood tree, giant redwood tree. And that little bird was so small. He started looking up. He says, "Are you quick?" He's all Kim Sonin the Pekwaika. He's like, Chawak Soxy Pan Neko, Chot Nurger Kapak and Neko, Negnumi Spure Works, Simek, Nachuo let my Nachuo let my kitty a purr or let me. He says, "I'm so sad." He said, "Please have mercy on me. Please have pity on me." He's all, "I broke my wing and I miss my family so much." He's all, "My family left." He says, "Chotner Gary Kerpa, please help me." Now Redwood looked at that little bird and he said, "Pete Ratchin." He said, "Of course, my friend." He picks that little bird up and he throws him into his branches. And so all in him, Kaway Squin, Cape Poon. So that whole winter he stayed in his branches. And so while all this was going on, one a called Neat no Wasa, the creator, he was watching all this. So he comes down. Sorry, I messed up for a second. And so that little bird is the only seabird. That was the marble merlet. It's an endangered seabird. And that's the only bird that nests in redwood trees. And, we believe it's because of the story. And so anyway, so the creator was watching all these. So he comes down and he goes over to Pun the map. He says, "Dogwood tree." He says, "Hanit no wasa." He's "I was watching you. Count Muskuyeni, count Numi Sme Yor." He says, "You were being really mean. You weren't being very kind to your neighbor." And he said, "For that," he says, "I'm going to teach you a lesson." He goes, "I'm not going to take away your beautiful flowers. I'm going to let you keep your beautiful flowers." He's all, "Well, wish too." He said, "But," he said, "you're only going to have your Numinal Rao with chi ship, moon che with chi ship for a short period of time. You're only going to have your beautiful flowers for a short period of the year." And so that's why our dogwood trees, the Puna map, only has the beautiful white flowers for about a month and a half out of the year. And so then he went over to the hot manat, to the acorn, Tanok acorn tree. And he says, "Hanit no wasa." He said, "I was watching you and you weren't being very kind. You're so busy that you couldn't help out your neighbor." And he says, "For that," he says, "I'm going to make you busy for the rest of your life." And so you're going to be, when I create all the local natives, he said, you're going to be producing acorns and you're going to feed the people. You're going to help the people. And so you're going to be busy for the rest of your life. And so that's why us Yurok people and Hoopa people and Karuk people, we have lots of acorns that grow around here, but we mostly eat Tanok acorn trees because that's her responsibility to us. And then he came over to the redwood tree and he says, "Hani no wasa." He's a Count Skuyeni. "Oh," he says, "I was watching you and you were so kind. You're so kind and you're so big and that bird was so small, but it didn't matter. You wanted to help him out." And he says, "So what I'm going to do is, when I create humans, they're going to treat you just like another human being. They're going to love you and respect you. And whatever they use you for, they can make boats out of you, if they make houses, or if they make drums, they're going to put a heart in there. Now, heart's going to represent your kindness and your love that you showed. It showed that little bird. And that's an important quality. And so in our canoes are all women, and they have a heart, they have body parts, but it's a human, it's a living being. And then in our traditional redwood houses, we have we put a redwood stick by the fire to represent the heart of the house, and and our regalia trunks are shaped like a chest cavity and everything. So I wanted to share that story because being, one of the lessons I learned from Awak, Victoria's grandfather, is, we paid him, even though we paid him to learn, like I was raised by my grandparents, I'd always go there and I'd bring him some fish, or I'd bring him, some deer meat, or, something when I visited him, because that's just what I thought, was right, what I learned from my grandparents. And he'd always tell me this story about how there's so much love in our communities. He would talk about his brothers, Walk Andrew, and those guys going and getting deer and going to everyone's house and saying, "Do you want something? Do you need something? Come and take some of this deer meat. Come and grab some of these fish." And now there was so much love in the community. And he says people forget that nowadays. People get too busy in life, and people think they're better than others sometimes. But I think I wanted to share the story as a reminder, like all of us language people, we have so much love, but also it is really hard to we do get busy in life, and we do need those reminders, like like we're human, all of us here, we're all connected. And so I just wanted to share that story with everyone. So walk so.
Qualm. Awesome. That's a great story. I mean, that's really neat to hear other people's stories and to like think about like our stories are just really similar, those teachings that are embedded within each one of them. And that's the same concept of like the animal people before humans came around. Like we have that same concept of like how they all interacted with each other like that, the exact same way. So awesome. Good story. Good teaching. Lamlumped. I always hate to cut these little things short. I feel like this virtual, that's what my one con about the virtuals, I feel like we do have to like be so stickler about time and stuff. So it is lunchtime or break time or wherever, whatever time it is, if your guys' time zones. We're going to break for an hour. It is, yep. So we do have that visiting room that's still open. If you would like to join that visiting room, grab yourself something to eat and come just talk real casual. This afternoon, we have a CRA discussion. So Maria has a small presentation, just a kind of brief refresher, and then we'll go into the discussion on what CRA might look like for this final year of the grant. And then we also have poster board presentations right after that. And so poster boards, each grantee will have about 10 minutes, and we will share on our end your poster board, and you can talk about what you sent in. So, all righty, enjoy your break. Come to the break room if you have a chance, and we'll see you guys in an hour. All right, are we ready to get started? It's 2 after, whatever time zone you're in.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and start with the CRA discussion, and Maria will be leading that up. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Maria.
Okay, great. I'm going to share a screen with you guys. Just a minute. Let me get it up. Okay, there we go. So the CRA discussion, our community readiness assessment. The reason why we brought this up, and I put it in the newsletter last month for July, is that you guys have started year 5 as of July 1st. And I wanted to remind you that when you did yours in year 1 and year 3, and so year 5 is your last year for your community readiness assessment. And Jim and I worked together. We put together this grid, so to speak, on this Word document, but also you have it in your packets. And there's also some guideline things that Jim had written up. So you'll find it in your meeting packets. You'll find it on the USB drive, and you can also click on it in the online on the agenda in the detailed section. One thing I wanted to remind you guys about the readiness assessment is that it's not, if you remember reading the article that I wrote, it's not really talking about how well you are doing. It's basically learning about how much your community knows about the issue. And for you guys, your issue is language revitalization or the programs that you're doing to increase your language revitalization. And so, and this is something you guys have been doing since year one. So you guys are getting pretty good at it and kind of proficient at it. And I want you to remember something too. You can use it for other things. It was first developed back in the about maybe 10-15 years ago as a way to measure the substance use awareness in a community. And the doctors that developed this, Dr. Pamela Jumper Thurman and Dr. Oh no, I knew I was going to forget her name. Barb Plested, that's it. They put this together as a way to determine how aware a community was about a certain issue. And so it's been used in many different communities now for many different issues, including substance use, domestic violence. And now you guys are using it as a way of determining how aware your communities are about language revitalization and how well they know about the programs that are about language in your communities. So, and Howard, I'm going to pick on you for a moment because this is something I thought of when you guys are doing your focus groups about your about in your communities on the surveys that you just did. You can actually use the CRA too, and I think Jim might have mentioned this to you about those certain areas that you found in your focus groups that if you want to find out more about them. So you can even do mini CRAs within your community, so you can do in sub-communities. So I just want to let you guys know this is something that you guys have learned and you know how to use, and so you can now use it pretty much in any any part of your community just to get an idea of where your community is in their knowledge and their awareness of any issue. And I don't want you to keep thinking about this, oh, I can just use this for language. No, you can use it for anything. And a lot of the resources that I provided in the detailed area of the agenda are from other communities that have used it for different things. Like I've mentioned, suicide prevention, substance use, and domestic violence. So now, I know I wasn't with you in February, and I really am sorry that I wasn't able to go to and see you guys at the grantee meeting. But Cree told me that you guys had were talking about this there, and I know in the surveys that I saw that came back, a lot of you commented you wanted to keep this continue this conversation about CRA with this meeting. And so what Cree has put together for us, and I'm going to stop sharing this. Cree put together a Nearpod for us, a collaboration board. So you guys can go ahead and start taking notes or putting ideas about CRA up there, how you're using it, if you're thinking about using it in a different way. I just want to let you guys know that this is your discussion and your conversation, and we can be here to ask you answer questions if you have them, or maybe throw some ideas or be your sounding boards. That's what we're here for. So Cree's got it up. So
yeah, so the link should be in the chat. So if you click on that link that I just posted in the chat, it should take you directly to the Nearpod. And so all it is a collaboration board. And so as we're talking, if we're bringing up certain topics, everybody will be able to comment on it. So that way it'll be a good record for us in planning and future discussions and stuff.
I'll repost it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Cricket. All right, so if you guys want to go ahead and click on that, and we'll go ahead and get into Nearpod. And keep your Zoom windows open.
You can minimize your Zoom if you want, but don't close it out. But we're going to be on the Nearpod. So February was quite a while ago, or feels like it. Feels like a year ago at least.
Well, it
but
was about 7 months ago.
yeah, feels like forever ago.
Oh,
And
6 months ago. Sorry.
I do remember that we had a discussion, and that discussion had to get cut short for the sake of time at that our cohort meeting that we had. And so this is just kind of a way to continue that discussion. And so once everybody gets loaded in here, we can start.
Cree, while we're waiting for everyone to get loaded in, what else do you use this Nearpod for? I'm not familiar with it.
You can use it for all kinds of things. What's really cool about it, I think, is that you can actually hold on, you can actually make it student paced. So you can create these lessons. For example, if you wanted to use it for teaching lessons, you totally could. And you can make it student paced to where you don't have to walk them through it, and it'll pop up quizzes and polls and drawing boards, and then it'll keep it as a record. So for example, but that feature of the self-paced, I believe, is a premium feature. If you're interested in purchasing it, it would be a great way to assess people. Like, I know you guys do a lot of pre and post assessments. It would be a great way to assess kind of some basic knowledge, and it will keep record of all their responses for you to look at. Oh, thank you, Victoria.
Okay.
All right, so we can go ahead and start. It looks like most everybody's in here. Again, I can't remember exactly what was discussed, but I just remember we had the discussion and it got cut short. So I don't know if ANA, if you guys had any priority discussion items you wanted to talk about right off the bat, or if this is, if you'd like this to be maybe grantee-led discussion.
Yeah, it can be grantee-led. I don't know if Brent is on here, or if anyone at ANA can recollect that conversation that we had related to CRA off the top of my head. My thought is, I know the plan was to do this in year 1 to sort of see as a baseline, and then we were doing it in year 3 to see sort of like, where are we midpoint in the project in terms of the community's awareness, and if that number changes. And then in year 5, we wanted to do it sort of at the end. Since a lot of our grantees may be doing NCEs, I don't know, we might want to discuss whether we want to do it in year 5 or do it as part of their last final year. Because I feel like also that everyone's sort of a little bit on a pause in terms of outreach, holding focus groups. So some of the methodology might have to be adapted. I guess you could do focus groups virtually. So I think that's just, I'm throwing all those ideas out there.
Yeah, I also, Mia, didn't know if they had to adjust the activities, the CRA activities based on what's on the results, or if the current activities still work.
You mean adjusting some of the things that they're doing based on CRA results?
Yes. If that's something that's been looked at.
Well, one of the things that like Kaya was found out, which we kind of knew in the beginning anyway, but we just over and over and over again, we need to keep getting publicity out. We need to keep the communication, which is difficult because it's all over the state, and so it's I think that with all the electronic stuff we're doing, it's increased things now, but I think that we still have, based on those results and everything, we still have that issue with communication with all the different sites, and communication with the other community members.
Yeah, we hear you, Cricket. That is definitely difficult. I think like that is kind of a lot of the thinking around our native language community coordination is, really firming up all of those partnerships and communication across all the different areas of your community that you're focusing on, to make sure that people are aware of language and that that is just continuously being heightened and people are getting more involved. To one of Mia's point, so this the CRA is normally designed for key informants, so having oftentimes like one-on-one interviews, which I believe can even be over the phone and things like that, and then being transcribed and rated. And I'm fairly certain that we have recorded webinars or other sessions where we've discussed the CRA and done some training on it. So I know that maybe there's some new folks, with some grantees. And so maybe they could also review that webinar or training if we ever recorded them. I know a lot of people are very familiar with it, and so I don't think that everyone needs to review it, but for a couple of folks, if there's been some changeover in their leadership, then that could be helpful.
Well, another thing is, to add on to what you were saying about getting the word out there, is getting about the language, but it's also getting the word out there about what we are doing. And anyway, that's because sometimes people go, well, what are you doing? And well, come to an outreach. And now it's, going to be, everything is virtual, but but and like just letting people know, through different types of media outlets, what it is that we're doing and inviting people. And I think that's always been kind of an issue for us, is making sure that people all over know what and that they're invited, that there are these activities going on. So and it's not just one area, but all the different sites know, and the community in those different sites know what's happening and know that they're invited. I don't know if everybody else had that show up on the.
Yeah, and then I think also sorry, I'm definitely want this to be grantee led. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify one other thing for Rosia. I thought we decided, but I could completely be wrong, that whatever activities were in there, like OWP for the CRA, were just gonna be rolled over to the future years. Whatever's already in that plan, but I might be mistaken.
Well, we did, we've had a lot of conversations around that, the CRA activities. And so we all, the cohorts and myself, October of 2019, we met with each program specialist and we flagged the activities, those readiness activities. And some were left in and the grantee said, yeah, these are doable, they're fine. And then some were flagged as like, that might just not be realistic. And so I do have all those notes on what activities were flagged as like potentially being too ambitious at the time. And then those are rollover activities, to my understanding. And so, but yeah.
I think.
Thank
What? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Candice.
Okay. I was just thinking back to the interview itself, and there's a whole section on what people know about your current activities, and all of our current activities have changed. So we're going to see some the effects of our COVID planning and COVID response in our CRA results. It's just something to keep in mind.
There was an issue culturally that we had with the CRA questions. When we interviewed key people on it, it was saying some of the questions are geared for if they know what others feel about whatever it is, the activities or knowledge or something like that. And and so like elders or older people or traditional people are like, basically, I don't want to assume to know what somebody else is thinking. And in those questions that we asked for the community readiness action plan or not action plan, community readiness assessment, they were off-putting whenever we asked people what they thought about what other people may think. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I had a quick question. When doing the phone interviews, does anybody have any tips or tricks as far as transcription that worked well for them? That made it easier? Any apps or?
I know there's some online apps you can use that are free for doing some of the translation. I think they vary in the quality. Like sometimes you have to go in and do some editing yourself. So, but I think they're, I wish I could remember. I know we used one for one of the CRAs we did. So they are out there and available. We can look into that for you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely apps out there available. I know, and then plus you can also use, like if you're doing it virtually like this, you can use it. I think there's a recording feature in Zoom and other online that might make it easier for you. And then you could save the recording so that you're more engaged in the interview, not so much in taking notes.
Yeah, exactly.
To Sean, sometimes I feel like this third time that we'll be doing it, I think we'll have more of an idea of how we've been doing it, and if we had to do it over again the first time, then who knows, we might have better results that first time, like how we're supposed to ask and how we transcribe, because I think we've gotten better at it after that second time. And so I think this third time will be even better. And so with that, and coupled with the issue of how we had to put off a lot of our activities because of this virus, our data might be a little bit, I don't know if it'll be skewed or not skewed, but not corrupt either, but it just might look different. And I don't know if that's all right, or we have to make that note of observation that, well, the data might be better or worse because of this crisis we're going through. I don't know. And then we might have to ask different questions too. Because that's what, when we did it the second time, I felt like, oh, we could have asked this question different or whatever. But I know we had to keep the same consistent questions as the first one. So that was a little bit of a thing. Like I said, now that we know what we kind of know what we're doing, I guess, but I guess it's all a learning process.
You're right about that, Sean. And what we have suggested in other contracts that we have where they're collecting data over time, like you guys are, is to identify that the data collected before COVID showed this, and the data collected after the onset of the pandemic shows this. So even if you do have a 6th year, you might want to consider doing the CRA again after the pandemic's gone through a little further to see what changes have happened between this year's and the next one. And just so you have a comparison of before and after the pandemic and how well or how much more awareness there is about your language programs and the activities that you do. And if there is a change, if they do prefer online activities or if they have suggestions about what to make it better. But yeah, it is a learning curve and you guys are getting better at it. So that's something to think about, having pre and post or before COVID and then during the pandemic itself.
Victoria, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just thinking one suggestion and an idea just to kind of get in your thoughts about, but I know the first time, we chose the people to interview, and then when we did it the second time, it was optional if we wanted to stick with those same people we interviewed, or if we wanted to choose new ones. I don't know. I would think maybe it would be easier to this third time to ask the same ones, just because I don't know, just to get your thoughts on that. As far as like talking about the scores being skewed, with the pandemic and taking all those into consideration when we get these final results. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a valid question, Victoria. I don't know how many of the other cohort members use the same or if they changed them and if they felt that there was a difference. And maybe that's a good question for our evaluators on the call.
Can I speak to what our thoughts was, Miss Mia, on that? We use the same people, and we was frustrated when we used the same people. And I think we'll probably, if allowed, use other folks this next time, because some of the same questions, they was just wore out, and at the end, I don't know if they was answering or if they was just trying to get us off the phone. It wasn't near as exciting the first time that had to go around, but we midway through this, we actually, our numbers, I don't know if them was skewed, but our numbers actually went down a little bit. And if that happens in any of your tribes, if that goes down a little bit, it's because people's getting frustrated and they're about to blow up. And it actually, after that, we've seen a major change because the communities, the language community didn't think our tribe was doing enough. and so that push was it was backfilling to really push through. So, but yeah, the ones we interviewed, um, I think there was just it was tired of dealing with it. So I think using new people may be helpful this time around, as for us.
I'm going to be really interested to see what the Cherokee results end up being, because of the huge change your community has had just in this last year.
We're Candace, we're baffled. What I mean, really, at this point, it is moving, and there is a lot of things. Is just I think key was coming in there and kind of doing that focus and asking and finding out what really stirred up the people, and we utilized what we've learned from this is what will make this demographic go rough about this, go crazy about this, and this is something that will collectively make all of them. I think all of that will probably change depending on the tribe, but it has, I'm sure Miss Mia was tired of dealing with me for a little while there because I really didn't believe in what we was doing, and I don't know how it actually worked, but unless we are really, really over believing this, it has really, really changed the face of language revitalization at the Cherokee Nation.
Victoria, your question kind of spurred on a thought of mine, because I actually haven't been able to see your guys's like transcripts or so like the scores you guys get are consolidated between like the people that you interview, right? So for example, if we're looking at one dimension across 6 people, does it usually vary quite a bit from person to person to get that kind of average, or does all those people kind of seem to have a similar answers? And that might be a question for everybody. How much does one person vary within a community? So like maybe you're one person on this end scored that dimension at a 1, and then the other one scored it at a 6, and then it had to meet in the middle for between that, or was it generally even across the board? Because if it's more even, then it might, if people's scores individually look fairly similar, then it might not matter too much if you have different people. But if it does vary from person to person quite a bit, then maybe it would make more sense to go with that same person. I'm not a data person, though. Maybe Jim can say whether or not that makes sense, but just a thought that I had based off that question.
I think, and I'm looking at my data from, it must be 2019, because I have 2017 and 2019 scores here. But I think it looks like you'll have the scores for the different areas, like knowledge of efforts, leadership, community, climate. Those seem to have, at least in our community, a difference between people of up to 2 points. Some categories, like knowledge of issues, in 2019 had it was between a 3, a 3.5, and a 4, and there were 2 people had 3, 2 people had 3.5, and 1 person had 4. But when you do the interview, you transcribe, and then you have 2 people score them based on what they see in the interview. And then those 2 people have to meet up and agree on the scores. So their different scores might be very different from each other. They have to agree on a single score for every person, for every topic. and then those get averaged. So there's a lot of reading this data and interpreting this data. And so we're trying to have the same people at least score all the data throughout the whole event. I have done the interviews for the CRA for Kodiak both times before, and it is something I'm going to have Talitha do this year, which will be another factor in things that might make a difference in answers, because people know I'm a language person and they don't recognize Talitha as a language person. So they might feel more comfortable telling Talitha that nobody cares, or that like they might feel more comfortable telling Talitha the honest truth rather than what they think I want to hear as a language leader. So that's another thing we'll include in our report. Sorry.
Thank you, Candace, for that explanation. Again, teaching the whole class and reminding everyone. We appreciate it. Can you remind us how many people you have interviewed?
I think we did 6 both times.
So one of the important parts is making sure that you're like the community that you have like decided to interview, is the same, which probably I doubt is a difficulty for Candace, because Kodiak is a little bit smaller. But I believe Kiowa, at least the first time, and I believe the second time, did interviews in all of the sites, kind of like the broader community. And so that would want to be included again, unless I'm mistaken. Someone can correct me if I am. And then, so I think like making sure that you're choosing your key informants, the people that kind of are like in the community, kind of have a general understanding of like what's going on in the community or in those different areas that you're going to interview. So that I think is one of the most important parts. So that could be new people, or it could be the same people that you have interviewed before. I don't know that there is information one way or the other saying if one side is better or worse. I mean, it might be easier to re-interview people you have because they kind of understand the process. But I don't know if Jim has anything else to add.
No, I don't. I mean, yeah, I think the important thing is to have interview folks who verbally have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community. And if you have to interview somebody that's different, if there's sort of a likewise type of stakeholder, that's fine too. Yeah, there's nothing in the, I don't know if there's anything in literature like Brent said. I don't think there is. And again, this is not a super scientific process to follow. I mean, it's really trying to get some meaningful information for you guys to do future planning around your language efforts.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, so it may be the first time you interviewed a principal at the school and that principal had been there for 5 or 6 years, like that's probably a good key informant. But then if you've changed over principals and this new principal has only been in the school system and just moved there 3 months ago, then like that's probably not a good candidate. Maybe a different teacher that has been in the community that, as Jim says, like has the pulse on the community would be like a better key informant. Things like that. And then I think the other like lingering question is just around like implementation. And so this last one is really supposed to be like to kind of be to measure, you know, what all the work that you've been doing over the past 5 years, like how has it gone, like how aware is the community, you know, different things like that. And so I think ideally it would be, you know, we wouldn't implement this like next month, you know, we would not, like, you know, because you still have a whole 5th year to go. So ideally it will be implemented towards the end of the project. So I don't know if that might be like the springtime of the 5th year. But, you know, based on everyone's past experiences, it is very time consuming. And so there needs to be, I think it's probably taken people like 3 months or maybe 4 months or something to go through that whole process. So, you know, I imagine that might look like sometime in the spring of 2021. And then I don't know if there would be a discussion, Mia, around like if grantees do get a 6th year, if some of them do, if that happens again, or if we just call it at the end of the 5th year. I'm not really sure. I mean, and then, you know, of course, yeah, I think there will probably have to be some notes around the COVID and how, you know, that definitely changed some folks' plans.
Also, when we ask the question of, you know, what does your community think? Most of them always ask, what community are you talking about? And like, well, it's whatever you believe your community is, and et cetera, et cetera. So we have people that was thinking about their actual this town. The others is thinking about their, you know, their language community. The others is thinking about their tribe. The other ones that was thinking about maybe, you know, I don't know, their church community. You know, I don't, you know, they had different things. Is it okay if we just say, look at our tribe as your community? Would that be? Because I think at first was instructed not to, or we believed we wasn't supposed to. I don't remember how it all went down, but it didn't give us. It was confusing.
Howard, I'm glad that you brought that up, because in some of the interviews that I conducted this last go around, that was always confusing for folks, because I would ask them to just keep in mind what they consider their community. And that might be the tribe, that might be where their family resides. And then they would give differing answers depending on the topic, especially leadership. When they thought about leadership, they thought about tribal leadership. But in the questions, it would specifically ask community leaders. So then they would have to sit back, think about it a little bit, and they would always give 2 different responses. And sometimes those were on 2 very different ends of the spectrum, and that was difficult to even score and transcribe sometimes. So the topic of community was a big issue for us, because our land base is so large and our communities, some are pretty spread out.
This is Rosia. So when I think about NLCC, community coordination, it was the whole thing was about having that coordination to continue language, could be language instruction, learning, engagement from birth to post-grad. So for me, I'm trying to picture, like, within my community, who's there ready to support, make sure that there's going to be opportunities for the little ones to learn the language as they go from pre to K to middle school, elementary, middle school, high school, and college, and even in after college in community events. So to me, I'm trying to picture who all would be involved in those important parts. And that's who I would want to find out who's ready to support. And if they're not ready, how can I get them involved in being passionate and supportive of all these language efforts we're trying to make. Just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
So my initial response, and again, I'm not a data person, and I'm not saying this as from any kind of data expertise, but just from language perspective, I would say if I was conducting this interview for my own language, I would define it for them. I would say, this is what I mean by community. And that way, like you said, they're not thinking, oh, just my town of Inchalim, because I have my town, I have my reservation, and then there's 8 more bands up in Canada that speak our language. So when I'm talking about that, I want to be sure that they know that I'm specifically talking about all the land bases that speak Okanagan Salish. And so up in Vernon, British Columbia, which is 7 hours away from where I live, I want them to know that that also is what I'm talking about. But at the same time, they only know whatever is it probably within their own town or wherever they go, right? So thank you, Jim, for posting. He says, clearly define your community. So that seems, I would give them the definition.
Okay, and we just note that in our report that for the first 2, it was self-defined.
Yeah, the respondents themselves interpreted what community meant.
So that brought up, I guess, great questions for me to lead when I'm asking questions is ask the people, what are you defining as your community and who are you defining as your leadership? Are you your village? Who is your leadership? Are you talking about your council? Are you talking about, who are you talking about? So thank you.
When our assessment is really clear that we're asking about the Kodiak community, which includes people who live on the road system in Kodiak, and that it's Native community members. So that they don't have to guess about how the Coast Guard base feels. They don't have to guess about there are 6 different villages around Kodiak, and each of those villages have a different feeling about it. There's also a lot of people on mainland Alaska that are Alutiiq, and people who live out of the state who have very little exposure and access to cultural education. So we defined and really limited our scope of who we're asking about in ours. Sorry.
Wake up. I can't tell if something just happened to my computer. Is anybody talking? Or okay, just making sure.
No, we're waiting.
Okay.
I think Candace was talking. It's been something happened.
There was another thing like that. I feel like there was another definition we had another conversation. That was one that we had before, was like defining the community. And there was one more that I was trying to remember of, leadership. Yeah. So was that defining the leadership? Like, do you tell them like don't limit it to tribal council. It could be anybody in your community who people look up to or who people trust. I think that was another question on, do you define to your respondents what you mean by leadership? Because they might just say, oh, tribal council, or that type of thing.
I just have to say that we didn't tell the respondents. I know this is the previous thing, but we didn't tell the respondents. I gave like, it could be this, it could be that. What do you think? You know, just gave them a few different choices and said, well, you know, it's up to you what you think, you know, but I gave them some ideas. So I just wanted to add that in there.
So just for my own clarification, are we thinking then about possibly pushing this into the no cost extension period, finishing this out, or do we want to kind of get a schedule in our heads going?
My thought is we should probably try to pursue a year 5 data call, because we don't know if there's all going to pursue the NCE. So I definitely want to make sure we're all doing it on a similar timeline. I liked Brent's suggestion that maybe we do it as close to the end as possible, but also allowing enough time to make sure it does get completed. That's my 2 cents. Feel free to chime in, guys.
So if we could wait till, like you said, wait towards the end of the 5th year or this year, and then we can gauge whether we need to push it to the extension period, you think?
No, because I said I don't know if all are going to need the NCE. So, and then feel like we've done incremental times, like a year and a half in between. So, or it's supposed to have been 2 years apart. So I think if we keep the same timeline, that would be best, be consistent. So in terms of like whether we do it in the fall or whether I was recommending we do it in the spring. Theoretically, the projects are supposed to wrap up 6:30. So starting, would it take 3 months to do it? So maybe the earliest or the longest we can push it off would be maybe March, early March. I meant April.
It does take 3 months.
So the first week of April might be a deadline. Is that something doable, or is that what you're looking
No,
for?
Rosie, it's not a deadline. I mean, I think Mia was saying starting
That would be
in
the
April
start.
to finish it before
You would start
the
in,
end
you
of
say
the.
start in January or start in April?
Start in April. Technically, it's May, June, July would be 3 months. But I think if we gave ourselves 2 weeks, ramp it up, so starting mid-April.
But
And
our
then
grant ends on 6:30 now. So can we back that up to March? Because Candace is saying it's going to take 3 months.
Yeah, so March would be.
So you got, I was saying if you started mid-April, you got mid-May, mid-June, mid-July. That would be right towards the end.
But they end June 30th. So they wouldn't have any July, I think is what she was saying. If they didn't have an NCE.
Yeah, if they ended in June, they would rather start in March.
Okay, that's fine.
I think the main question for everyone is, so if everyone starts to work on it in March, will everyone be able to get it finished? And if so, I think that's fine.
That's for the recipients to answer. Once Talitha gets that new app on how to transcribe, it's going to go quick, huh?
I'd rather start in February to give us another month. I mean, I don't know if we have to wait, but I'd rather you give us if it's due first week of April, then we'd have February, March to do it. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I was saying start mid-April, but now they want to push it to start in March.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then it would be due when?
If we give you 3 months to do it, with that.
Oh, okay.
If you start mid-March, it'd be due mid-June.
Okay.
I think it would be kind of good to have it done a little bit before June 30th, because I know we're all trying to wrap up our budgets, within that last 2 weeks, or, anything, wrapping up any kind of purchases and that kind of stuff I'm just thinking of. But so I think, anywhere from mid-March to April, beginning of April would be a good time to start.
I would lean towards February on our end, just because it seems to take us just a little bit longer to do everything than we planned. So I'd rather be ahead of the game and really be able to finish a strong report. That's our last one.
Do people just want to post on this collab board when they prefer, what month they prefer to start?
Well, I thought the conversation was we wanted them to have a little bit more time to get some things done and then start like early March. And then you'll be done by no later than the end of May if you have 3 months. And then you still have a whole nother month to do other project activities. But I think the majority of you are still going to need an NCE year. Some of you have indicated that, but since we're talking about, the timeline for the 5th year, I just wanted us to not leave it up in the air.
I'm curious to see what the other things we have going on in year 5 are, and it's hard because all of our plans are up in the air. I don't know what March is going to look like. Normally we have spring break in March, and May gets really, really busy because there's all these events, and school is wrapping up, and I don't even know if that's going to happen. It's just hard to plan right now. I guess I'll just be flexible and open-minded. That seems to be the theme of the year.
Can I just be nosy and ask how many aren't going to be asking for a no cost extension?
I
So
don't
we're
think
all going
everybody-
to be asking for one?
I think everybody's leaning that way. But thankfully, we have a year 5 planning session tomorrow, so you do have a day to process this and think on it a little bit more. Maybe come up with some pros and cons, and then we'll solidify that tomorrow. That'll be on a priority. So, because right now we are moving into the poster board session, so to keep us on track a little bit.
Hey, everybody. It's always dangerous to talk too much data in the afternoon, especially after a big lunch, but I think it's going okay. This is a sort of an ongoing saga of presenting how we're doing as the grant unfolds. Remember, last year in Kodiak, we did this in person where we brought all our information we had and put together a poster board. Just, they were kind of crude, but that was fine. I think it was a nice process to walk through. And Cree brought this up earlier. Either something is really going to be, it goes real fast, like, we planned for an hour and it's done in a half hour because maybe there wasn't a whole lot of interest, or there was an interest and it lasted too long. And that was the case, and that's why we brought over the poster board again to our Cherokee visit, though, as we know, that did not occur. So instead of having time to work together with everybody at a session, we've been and I've been periodically talking with you all about sort of some of those things that you would like to focus on and share out at this virtual convening. Could be sort of a broad range, something specific, maybe, and there was lots of interest around, the pivot since COVID. So, so again, we let everybody go and do theirs. I've reviewed some of them. I think they're very good. So we would give everybody about 10 minutes or so a piece to present, and then leave a little bit for questions. And yeah, and you'll see we have sort of different variations of like a PowerPoint and poster board. So people have done them different ways. And like I said, I think they're very good. I want to make it easy. Would anybody like to volunteer to do the first poster board? Otherwise, as I pointed out we good. Then we start with A, which then would say Sean, but Candace has said yes. So all right, that is Shunak, sorry. And Tom will do most of the moving for you, or Vexing Media.
Okay, great. I wanted to go first because ours incorporates community readiness assessment information. So, and Jim and I talked about a couple different options for what to present to this group for our poster board. Other ideas included fluency assessment results and kind of the process and how we get those results. Talking about survey development, because we just went through a neat process with some extra training on writing surveys. Our assessment piece in our grant is very survey heavy, so it was nice to get some focused training on how to write a good survey. And I decided to do a presentation on our strategic planning process because we had Jim shared a data, basically a poster with us at a recent convening, and our data had changed so much on our ADR from year 1 to year 3 about our strategic plan that I thought it was relevant. So our project has a really long name, Tamamda Li Tugut. We are all learning. And that's what we're going to call our video series for the Language Nest this fall. And our project goal is to develop a culturally relevant Kodiak Alutiiq immersion language nest for preschool age children with complementary outreach services for all age groups to sustain Alutiiq as a living language. And I've included a picture here of our language community. I think this picture was taken at the end of a previous ANA grant the Native Village of Afognak had. And this picture brings in community members that don't live on Kodiak Island. Our language family is big and spread out. We have between 30 and 35 living Alutiiq speakers, and many of them were in that photo. So we have an active language board. We've had an active language board for probably close to 20 years now. It's called the Kik Dachmut Alutiiq Regional Alutiiq Language Advisory Committee, which we call the KIK for short. And the KIK develops a strategic plan. We bring together a group of individuals. Anyone can come. Many people get the invite, and whoever wants to show up shows up. And we build a strategic plan based on the thoughts and feelings of the language community and supporting organizations. And it's what I was realizing while writing this and thinking about the pluses and minuses of our strategic plan was that it really does not include input from people who are not yet learning or not yet involved. It's really it's like a focus group of people who are really heavily involved and committed. And we don't get that input from people who want to be there, or who haven't gotten the invite, or who don't know they have the invite, or people who are too busy, or people who, elders who couldn't drive themselves there. I mean, we do a lot to get our elders there, but some just can't make it. Many don't live in Kodiak, and the idea of participating in a strategic planning session for hours on the phone is just not realistic. So we usually have a facilitator. We have some good facilitators in Kodiak with partnering organizations, and we get together and build a plan. We talk about what our language people need and want for the future. And you can go to the next slide. And the difference between the 2014 and 2019 strategic plan is that we really did incorporate what we learned from the community readiness assessment. We started the day with a presentation on the original, the 2017 data, because 2019 we made the plan in 2019, but we hadn't done the CRA in 2019 yet. So I had just gotten the 2017 data all nice and in my graphs and presentable. And we started with a presentation on the different, what the stages of community readiness are, what our scores were, what the questions included, so that they understood that it was a few people generalizing about the community, and the suggested next steps to take when your scores are what they were for us. And so we used that to help us build a strategic plan that addressed the issues in our community readiness assessment and addressed the levels we were at. We also had new programs created by our ANA grant that became part of our strategic plan. And we also, the third difference was that we developed the strategic plan with an accompanying action plan. And you can go to the next slide. So the impact of those changes was that individuals and organizations signed up for certain action items from the strategic plan, which gave them some independent responsibility. Not just that our community is going to do this and this is our overall goal, but I have my name on a piece of paper. So I am supposed to do this by a certain date and work with these other people to accomplish this goal or this piece of this goal. And we have since then reviewed the action plan and gotten updates from people, and looked at, like, this one, maybe number 10 isn't getting done. Is it really that important? Is it still our top priority? So we have been able to make some changes, and we also have measurable data that we can check for improvement. So we made a lot of our strategic plan goals relevant to our community readiness assessment scores. And we're going to do community readiness assessment again and see if the work we did had any effect on the community readiness score. And there was some input from outside of the movement, just from what we got from the community readiness scores. And you can go to the next one. So reviewing what we did with our strategic planning process got me thinking about the next process we have. And next time I would like to continue with the action planning piece. I think that made a big difference for our organization, and also to incorporate community input through focus groups or surveys. But I think surveys we've over surveyed recently. So I would want to do focus groups of individuals or organizations that are not normally at the table, because I think we're missing their voices. And as a group, a group of language learner teachers, elders, organization leaders who have always been dedicated, we lack that viewpoint of what it looks like from the outside. And we do talk about how to get people in, but we don't ask people, how do we get you in? So I think that's a important piece that we need to incorporate. But I think that the way that we changed our strategic plan to be so useful to us now is that we did use a little assessment and reflection on that evaluation through the community readiness scores, and then creating that action planning for accountability. And I think that's important for this language board, since we don't have like staff, right? This isn't a nonprofit board. It's a community organization that people volunteer to be part of, and no one's checking in on each other or anything like that. We have a strategic plan so that we have direction, and we can use it to look for grants that meet those goals we have, or be able to make sure that we're not going way out in left field when we plan a new project. But I think that was all. I think that's the last slide. So that's my poster.
Thank you, Candace. That was wonderful. I mean, nice, well thought out. You're kind of getting to the point in the ground where you're getting a lot of lessons learned, and you're making next steps plannings from these nice lessons that you've learned over the years. Would somebody else like to go next? Should we, I don't know, roll some dice? I don't know. Pick a number, any number. How
I
about,
can go.
okay, Cricket, thank you.
Okay. So y'all pull up the Kiowa, or how does
Kiowa
that work?
tribe, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I guess when we were on our, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we were on our call, Lily brought up, the things that we were doing to adapt and what we've had to do. And I said, well, maybe we can make that our poster board. So if you look at it, you'll just see how you can't see it. I don't know if you can see the whole page on my screen because I'm on my phone. You can't. But how the Kiowa Tribe Language Program is adapting to COVID-19 with elders and community, and the online training sessions and virtual outreaches. So the online training sessions, one of the things that we've seen that's happened, of course, the elders would like to have us to be there in person, and it's easier for them to hear. And, in case there's lag time and stuff, it's harder for our elders, but they have been wonderful, and they've all gotten on, and they've been helping. And, but for the candidates, we've had more candidates join more frequently. So, and I just thought that was interesting that because like we have a candidate that comes from Edmond, which is, I don't know, about a 45-minute drive from Norman. And it was really, really hard for her to make it. And now she's making every one, and she's just doing really well. And it's just been easier for some of the people to attend more consistently. So that's been a positive thing for the online, for the Zoom. It's been more difficult for our elders. One elder did say last night that she was like, yeah, I felt like everybody was like, we were all there in person. And when it was over, I just got up and walked into my kitchen, And so, so she's fine. She's getting used to it. Anyway, I just thought that was something positive that I wanted to bring out. And then the next thing that was kind of impromptu was they did have a singing session outside, but they posted it online and made recordings. And so there were 35 attendees, and went by, putting it online and recording it, and it gives everybody all over the world, a chance to be able to see part of that drum session. And so it basically has helped increase awareness to a broader area. And the other thing for the next page was improved productivity. And with everybody being home and not having to drive, make 30, 45-minute drives to their sessions. Tony makes a hour and a half drive there and an hour and a half back to her session. So one of the things that they're really trying to get organized on is the materials that are being produced. And she made a really good template for the teachers to do their lesson plans on. We were using the ILI template, and but people weren't really turning them in. And so by use of Zoom, Tony has been having a extra session at different times, maybe once a week or every week and a half, the past 2-3 weeks, and has really been getting the teachers involved in making sure that they're getting their lesson plans done. And so it's really increased, and which has helped increase their understanding and their productivity and in our materials being developed. So that one is a neat one right there. And I don't know if we would have been, if it weren't for the way things are right now, if we would have been utilizing Zoom the way that we're utilizing it now. And it really has increased also the professional development for them to really think about how they're going to run a lesson in their classroom or in the community or whatever area they're going to be teaching in. So this is just been a big increase in those two areas. One of the things that Gary was saying, or Jim was saying, just to look at our assessment scores, our midway assessment. So I didn't put our beginning one because it was at 0, no understanding, no knowledge. And so then when we did again, we went up, and that is the next page. Okay, so you'll see, we were 0 on the first, when we first started. People didn't really understand how endangered our language is. And I know that to be true from my own self, because of being in Tulsa and then moving to central Oklahoma. So I was in northeast Oklahoma and then moving to central Oklahoma, and then going and doing some activities in Anadarko public schools. I thought, oh, well, there's tons of Kiowas there. They're all going to know Kiowa. And so when I would do storytelling and I would tell, say Kiowa words, I couldn't believe that the kids didn't know it. And that was my first real awareness how endangered, and that was before the grant, how endangered our language was, because in our own community, not outside of it in a city, but in our own community, our children in schools did not have any knowledge of our language. So, from our program, going from that point of no knowledge and understanding, we had an overall composite score midway through of 0 to now, or midway through 3.89. And so if you go to the next page, it has what I would say, and or the improvements, I mean. So we are now in vague awareness. So we've gone up two stages, and I really, it could have been how we scored it, but I do believe that is a true assessment. Even key community people, I can just see the community overall getting being more aware that they have a vague awareness, and that's just really good. I want to move 2 or 3 more up at least. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. The other thing that I wanted to bring out that was positive is And I think it has to do with everything that I just talked about in the previous pages. And that is, you know, the just the increase of the teacher candidates coming more often, getting their getting lesson plans in, communicating with each other more now through Zoom. And so year one, and I'll give this as an example, year one, we wanted to do an immersion outreach. I think it was like our first outreach in Central Oklahoma. And like the longest the two candidates could stay in the language was like with a speaker, speaking to everybody, and little conversation set out at the table was 10 to 20 minutes. So we did an immersion outreach in, I guess, a little bit more than midway, because it was this past February, right before we went on lockdown. And our candidates and our elders, we had several candidates there, and we had speakers there, and we had more resources, and we had other helping tools at the table for the community to use. But we were able to stay in the language for over 2 hours. And it wasn't just us talking the whole time, but there were several of us there, and we were all able to stay in the language longer. And then the added resources that one of our candidates found and had done transcription on the language, on the conversations that were held in Kiowa, and passed those out so we could listen to it and people could follow along. Then they had a conversation set out at their table so they could practice with each other in Kiowa. That was really a positive thing to see. So I just wanted to add those two positive things in there. And then this is one of the things that Tony created. And aim on perdo means that we're thinking of you. And there's different ways to say this, but one of the ways one of the elders said was tobabe koi pan. And that means you wear the cloth over your face. And so this is, we're on the last slide. Yeah. So this is something that Tony created. And I was like, that goes with our theme. We should end with that. And so we care, so stay safe. So that's pretty much the, I guess, our ideas of what we wanted to talk about on our poster board.
Thank you, Cricket. A little bit of unanticipated positive outcomes in this time. That's, I mean, it's just silver lining. I know it's so bad right now. That's a silver lining in your work.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to go?
I can, Jim.
Okay, so Victoria, so
Yeah.
Yurok tribe, please.
Yeah.
Here you go.
All right. So this first slide is, we call our program the Kilai Alumesh program because it means they will teach. So, and our project title is Bridging the Language Gaps from Preschool through College, to grow that continuum of language in all those levels from preschool to college.
So I want
next
there. So beautiful.
So that's actually that location is the village I come from. That was one of the places I wanted to take you guys, you know, but yeah, that's called Shregon, and And so those are the teacher counters. You see James there from the left, Roberta, Skip, James, Nikki, Curtis, Sifa, Nikki, and Chelsea. And so James, as you can see, he's now our language specialist, but the rest of them are all working towards increasing their level of language and one-day teaching. So that was a good day. So we've included some of the things that prior to this grant, to the NLCC grant, we have had language provided in 4 high schools here in our local community. And we also have provided language in a middle school, and our current number of language teachers that we had credentialed under the language credential before was 9. So we were hoping to increase that number, through this grant, and able to reach more of the preschool, more of the elementary, middle school levels, and also the college level. So can go ahead and go to the next. So here, as you guys kind of see, we're river people here. Some of you were able to come visit here to Yurok country, and we call them the river schools because they're the schools that are located along Yurok ancestral territory. And these ones are all on. They're also the reservation. So Jack Norton is a very small school. They recently got electricity. They were ran for many years. It was a K-8 school ran by generators. And so so that was something that probably came in within the last couple of years, was electricity to their school. So they were really remotely, and out in the rural area. So and then the Witchpeck Magnet School was actually a school started, well, James might be able to help me with this because he was up there more often, but it was an immersion school at one time, starting out with a certain percent of the day would start in Yurok, and throughout the year would increase. After the grant they no longer received the grant. They were kind of had a hard time finding Yurok teachers that and so on. So, but it's still open. And then the Margaret Keating School is the one here located in Klamath, and I teach there 2 to 3 days a week. And so, after this grant, we'll have, more teachers being able to teach in the Head Start programs that'll be credentialed through the Yurok language program, and also have their bachelor's degree in child development. So the schools in Klamath, the Head Starts in Klamath and Capel, they don't have to abide by the California state, rules that they have for Head Start, but the Eureka site, since they're located off the reservation, they do have to go by state licensing. And then they recently opened up a Boys and Girls Club here in Klamath, something that was really needed for our community, for the youth. There's not much for the youth, outside of the home. So when they want to do sports, they have to travel, 30 minutes to an hour away. They, really want their children involved in, positive activities. So the Boys and Girls Club is a new facility that they, or a new program that they started here. So of course we went in and started partnering with them to provide Yurok language to the Boys and Girls Club. And then just with the colleges, that we have the Humboldt State University and the College of the Redwoods. And those are the partners that we're working with. We've had Yurok language provided at the junior college, and we were able to get it counted in 2 of the areas that would transfer to a CSU or a UC. So that was really nice to be able to do that. And it was a process. It took about a year to get the class approved to be at the college level, but you know, they were wanting it, they were in support of it, and that was a new partner, was the college. And so so that's a great relationship that's going to continue after this grant. And then the number of credentialed teachers that we plan to have after this grant through the program here is 8 credentialed teachers at the advanced level. So you can go on ahead. And James, you just go ahead and chime in if you.
I think that we have 8 more, including those 9 that we had before. So it's a total of 17 credentialed teachers now. So we have 8 more credentialed teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and as far as, you know, impacting our tribal communities, I know, you know, we've had community. It's so awesome to see, you know, the other language programs and there's, you know, how many staff that you guys are able to have, and, you know, to continue your language revitalization work. But even with, we have a small staff, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 staff. So we're stretched pretty thin, but we do make sure we have community classes just to kind of, you know, be there to provide that. And we have in the 3 areas. So these are all about, you know, an hour and a half to 2 hours apart from each other. And so I was actually traveling to Wichpec, which is about an hour and a half, you know, going over the mountain once a week to provide Yurok language to the community there. I just made it a work day, and it was really this last year. So my mom, some of you met my mom. She's the elders coordinator for the Yurok tribe. So that was a partnership, you know, that we had started. She was recruiting the elders and to come to Yurok language class, and she would cook a lunch under her program and, you know, provide that. And I would show up and to teach the class, you know, and it was really kind of scary, not scary, but just because these were the elders that didn't get to learn the language. You know, their parents, most of all, their parents spoke the language or had like a, you know, family member who spoke the language, but they didn't get to learn. So it would get emotional sometimes, you know, when we first would have the class, because they felt kind of like, you know, these were elders that know how to weave baskets, that are medicine people, you know, or that have a lot of knowledge about our traditions and our culture, but they missed, you know, learning the language. So this was like really made, I could tell, just, you know, they came back every week and they were like excited, and they were like, do we get homework? You know, they wanted to be able to really be able to speak to their grandkids, or, you know, at least their grandkids in Yurok. And, you know, they may not be able to be fluent speakers, you know, but at least that part really filled that gap of, you know, it was like they were saying it was their missing link that they were getting, you know, and they felt good about it. So our Eureka site community class, there's that one's filled with a lot of Head Start teachers, at least from when I was, Brittany usually teaches that class, and she's a mix of community members, Head Start teachers, and youth. And then the Klamath is what Barbara usually teaches, the Klamath class. And there's a lot of families that show up. I always show up and I'm like her little, you know, she practiced, or she'll show examples. We'll kind of, you know, use immersion with each other to kind of teach the class, you know. So that's a really always have had that one. She's had that one for many years on the same day at the same time. And so, you know, knowing that returns every year, the community members and staff, there's a lot of staff that come to that one. So I don't know, James, if you want to talk about some of the grammar, more or less the recent grammar workshops from the COVID, after the COVID had happened.
Yes. Do we have another slide? Or is that the last one?
No.
Okay, so that's just a list of some of the teacher candidates' degrees that they got or teaching credentials. We have one in child development, 3 multiple subject credentials, a single subject credential, and 2 college professors. And so they have those degrees as long as well as the Yurok language teaching credentials, which is a California state credential. Next one. So I didn't come on until the end of year 4, and right like my first day was we got to meet in person, and I was Friday and Monday we all went on lockdown. Um, so the things that happened since COVID, we went from having I think 6 out of the 10 teacher candidates, and then we increased that to 11. So we actually have one more. We were like 3 or 4 down, and so that's a good thing that was able to come. Also, we started really. It seemed like it was going to be harder because we like meeting in person, we like visiting, we like chatting. York people are talkers, and so we didn't know how our monthly grammar workshops were going to go. And actually, they went really well. At first, it's like, we only could do like 2 hours or 3 hours instead of like the 8 hours in a room in person. But, we had to build ourselves up because, sitting in front of a computer doesn't work very well. But one of the positives was our weekly immersion pods. And before, like, since Victoria was saying, like, our areas are spread out really far, it was hard sometimes to get everyone's schedule on time to meet weekly, or sometimes people didn't meet until only once a week or once a month to do the immersion pods. And since we started implementing Zoom immersion pods, we're able to have like 2 a week since COVID started. And it was actually opened the doors for people that never usually got to talk together. People that live 2 hours this way, and people live 2 hours that way. We can all come together on Zoom without traveling. And so it actually enriched our pods, and we're actually to have more speakers and more people involved in those. And so it was good. And to me, I haven't been part of the, even though I teach Yurok, 4 classes every day at the high schools, I haven't been part of the language program in about 5 years. So, I just been kind of doing Yurok at the schools through the school districts. And so it was a really good homecoming. Like, even though COVID was part of this, we ended up getting some people that haven't been involved in Yurok in 10 years or 3 to 5 years. They haven't been part of the program, and to get them all back. So it felt really good. It felt like, hey, we started this journey a long time ago, and revitalizing this. A lot of these people helped work with our elders that are no longer here. So, it was very powerful, I think. And, I'm excited. People are excited. They're like, we're going to keep meeting. We don't care if we're going to get paid. We want to, continue to use Zoom and meet as much as we can. And to me, I think that's so fulfilling, especially with me, like the monotony of teaching every day to students. And it's like, then every year you have to start over again with a new set of students. It's like you kind of plateau out. And so, like, I think this is very, very helpful and powerful to be able to do this together again. Kind of helps relieve the pressure, and with losing all of our elders. I had 10 elders I got to work with, and they're all no longer here. And so, like, it feels like a lot of pressure, like you have to do so much, right, as language teachers. And I don't know, I'm preaching to, the choir here, but it's like it's a lot of pressure. And so now that we have everyone here, it's like, it's like they can help carry some of that load. And so that's been a real good benefit of COVID. So I think that's the end of our slides. If there's any questions. We also did a survey. We did a long-term language restoration survey, and I was unfortunately unable to get it uploaded into here. We got 120 survey responses from different people in the community to help us plan the next 10 years of what the community wants, and it gave us a good plan on where to go in the future. And I think that's important for us, especially since this is the last year of this grant. So it's going to help us focus on, when we're writing grants in the future, what the community wants and where to go. And yeah.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Victoria. I mean, James, if you're interested in sharing it still, I'm sure we can work with our tech folks to help you get that loaded, either not up here, but someplace that everybody could take a look at the results. And just one other, I was happy to hear, Victoria, that the issue that you talked to Cree and I about when I think we were out there about the generation of elders who didn't learn the language. I'm glad that all that's sort of happening now. That's great. I didn't know that was going on. A little housekeeping. We have 2 presentations left. I'm glad everybody is, I think it's okay to go long on this. If we have something good to say, we want to hear it. So potentially, maybe we can move one to that opening we have tomorrow afternoon, if we'd like, or we could get through it. But we have 2 left. Would somebody like to go from Cherokee or Aaniiih?
Yeah, I'll go for Aaniiih.
Okay. Hi, Xavier. How you doing?
Good. Okay. Wahe nanisa nitho nanek ninan aninen nitan anitan. Hi, my name is Double Rider. I'm a white clay person. I'm from Hayes, Montana, and this is a slideshow or a PowerPoint about our grant. It is titled Aaniih Naanak Gits Ae, which means white clay people speaking white clay language together. And you could go on and go to the next slide for me, please. A little bit about the collab project. The director of it is Dr. Sean Chandler or Neethawak, and the coordinator is Sarah Holly, and then there's 3 mentors, myself, Wotzik, and her sister Serena. Go ahead and keep going. Yeah. So the project goal is to establish an integrated system of Aaniiih language instruction to increase language speakers at all levels, age, and fluency. And with that, basically, like the brief overview of that, or the summary, is that we're trying to, establish resources and allow anyone of any age to use those resources, no matter their skill level, in order to speak Aaniiih and eventually become fluent. And go ahead and go to the next one, please. The project has 3 different objectives, and I'll go ahead and run through each one. And at the end, I'll save a little time for some questions. But the first objective is, by the end of the 60-month project, the Aaniiih Language Ed Coalition will produce 4 guidance documents that will provide the framework for integrated planning, delivery, and assessment of Aaniiih language instruction. And the coalition itself will be made up of 12 community members who will meet quarterly. And that is a thing, the language coalition. Sean is on that. Sean, if you want to hop in at any time and mention anything that I missed, feel free to. But as far as the framework that has been delivered, and the assessments are a thing too. Could you go ahead and go to the next slide for me, please? Okay. Awesome. Objective 2. Okay, so here is kind of like the base layout of what the grant like entails, or the framework. So by the end of the 60 months, we will expand and align Aaniiih language ed from preschool to college. And from that, we will produce 90 preschool students with a basic foundation, 65 school-age children with a foundation, and produce 20 adults with advanced foundation. And that kind of goes hand in hand with like the school framework too. And then the skill level is based off of that. You're not going to expect a preschool student to have as advanced of a foundation as someone who's, 20. And what I mean by foundation is the when you're teaching kids, like I'm the Head Start teacher, and what I do is I just run through nouns and like basic commands that they can use, and that's kind of the base level, like beginning knowledge of what we think they need to learn in order to begin. And then Sean teaches the school aged, or like 3rd and 4th grade level is what they have right now at the immersion school, and what they're getting into is the writing system and a little bit of the grammar structure and how you format words, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Aaniiih is like a polysynthetic language, which means you take like the noun or the verb stem and you add on to it based off of what you're trying to say. So that what I'm talking about right now, that's more of an adult level situation. And from start to finish, you want to start with teaching them words that they'll use every day. You just think about the words that you use every day, like eat and drink and run and talk. And you teach them those, and as they get older, you expand and you teach them how to use their vocabulary more extensively in like a conversation scenario. And on each slide, sorry, I forgot to mention that there's some pictures. In the bottom right corner of those 4 pictures, there's Lynette in the first graduating class, and on the far left's the mentor Wojcik. On the top right of the corners of the pictures, there's Serena. She's a mentor too. And then the top left picture is just some students, the recent 8th graders that would have had their graduation ceremony had COVID not been a thing this year. Go ahead and go to the next slide for me, please. Okay, in order to achieve the goal, there's steps taken, as I was mentioning earlier. The 3 like big steps are that language classes are held at all levels, and here's some pictures of like the younger kids, and on the top left's myself showing like the base level teaching at Head Start, and the picture next to it's the class before of the previous mentor Nita, who was giving out awards at their Head Start for her teaching. And a big step to achieving like language fluency and understanding is cultural activities. A lot of cultural activities include language and vice versa. There's everywhere you look, there's like language involved in culture. There's like a meaning behind when you say a word, it means something. Like for example, the word Sabbath, a lot of us say it means don't do that. But from what I understand, it means perhaps not, because who am I as a person to tell someone to not do something of their own against their free will? Not any better than they are. So that's like kind of a cultural thing, just for an example of like what I mean by that. And then here's some pictures of the cultural activities are like on the bottom left. There's every year the immersion school students go down and they have a little greenhouse, sorry, forgot the word for that, where they grow sweetgrass and other plants. And during the fall time, they go and harvest it and braid it, and they get to take it home and smudge with it. And then on the right side's one of our teachers here at this college. He's the archery club what's the word I'm looking for? I guess supervisor, and he's showing he went through and showed the kids like how to throw an addle, which is she's holding there, and how to shoot bows. And afterwards we kind of went through like how to say and like what it meant to do those activities, culturally, and then included some language on that too. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, and here's a slide of kind of where we're going at right now and the direction that we're heading for the school year. Adapting to COVID-19 is what it's titled. A lot of what they had a plan to go in person, which is what we're doing right now. We're staggering the days, Monday, Wednesday for some students and Tuesday, Thursday for the other. But we weren't quite sure what was gonna, happen. So we did have a backup plan to go like fully online. So in order to do that, they ordered laptops for all the students, and so they can go online. And on the right there, there's just a slide of one of the classrooms that we set up for the fourth graders. It's more like it's based off of the Google Suites is what we were doing it on, to go through and set up some classes for language and just everyday surveys and attendance purposes too. And then the top bullet point says online language resource was produced. If you want to go ahead and scroll down to the next slide. Oh yeah, there's one right there, but right there is an example of like the language resource. It's I kind of went through and I made a couple of these little books from the training Creed gave us before. I made a couple, like that one right there is an example. I made a book about animals for the more or less like Head Start basis, where the teachers can go through, and I titled it up top each slide A through Z, every animal that I could find in the Grovant language, and put it in alphabetical order with the word in Aaniiih below, and then audio, either myself or an elder named Fred Gon that we had previously recorded. And just so you can see, like, they can see the word in English and see the word below in Aaniiih and kind of correlate when they hear the audio too. So it's not like they're kind of learning to read just by listening, if that makes sense, by hearing it and seeing it, like that says Kithia, and if you hear me say it, you should be able to figure out eventually that the theta goes to the TH sound, is the thought process behind that in my mind. So with the audio included, I think it's pretty nice to use and easy to understand. That's so going forward, just to recap, the coalition plans to produce more language resources like this, working on some, and Sean's working on other resources too, in order to teach the students throughout the year at all levels. I'm not quite sure what they're doing for the college level, and we're not quite sure what we're doing for the Head Start level because of COVID. I'm not really too sure, because the tribe has banned in-person gatherings bigger than 10, and I'm pretty sure they're putting their foot down when it comes to Head Starts going back. And truthfully, if they did go back, I don't know if I want to go in there, because kids aren't exactly clean, and I'm not sure how that would go. I wouldn't feel too comfortable doing that, so I would like to stick to the online stuff as far as that goes. And the final thing the coalition plans to do is just continuing to educate people culturally and linguistically around the schools and the reservation, and just in general. And then go ahead and go down to the next slide, please. Thank you. Then, and if there's any questions, you could feel free to ask me or Sean. And that little picture is just down there. There's a little sign, and it says that which just means wash your hands. I figured it's pretty self-explanatory with the picture. But thank you for listening. And yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask me or Sean.
Thank you, Xavier, for a nice presentation. I think clearly one of the good outcomes is having you on board and having Serena, a younger generation that's engaged in the language efforts at Aaniiih. So again, we're going to finish up with Cherokee tomorrow during the session that's around wrap up. And if we have any questions at that time, we'll deal with them there, unless somebody just has something they want to say so badly. Otherwise, I will pass it over to Cree to wrap things up.
Yep. So we didn't want to cut Cherokee Nation off or have them feel rushed, so we'll go ahead and wrap that up tomorrow, first thing when we do our wrap-up sessions. And I mean, that's awesome that everybody had a lot to talk about and to present about, and good job, everybody. Today was a really good day for me as far as seeing everybody like kind of interacting. There was a lot of, just that breakout session and everybody getting to talk about their projects. So I'm really happy that we were able to structure this in a way that it wasn't just us talking at you and the whole, 4 hours a day on Zoom. And thank you guys for really being engaging and participating and everything. So it's awesome. I appreciate it. So tomorrow morning, we're going to do the survey report out. Again, if you don't have a product, that's totally fine. If you guys just want to talk about the process and maybe what you had learned during the session, that's just fine too. Anybody have any questions or closing thoughts?
I just have a quick comment. I'm going to put my email there into the chat. It's to my survey group. So I'm going to be the one doing the presentation. I have the emails from question 1, 3, and 5. I don't have the emails from questions 2 and 4 and 6. So whoever's working on those, I'm going to put my email into the chat. But yeah, great job.
Awesome.
And again, we'll be sending out has it gone out yet, a survey link to assess today's activities and what you thought about them.
Yeah. We got our surveys from yesterday and we're really happy about it. Hopefully we can keep that energy moving. I was getting tired this afternoon. I was like, don't look too tired, because when I look tired, I just look mean. So try to look happy. So, all right. Well, we're going to open up our visiting room session too. So if you guys want to stick around and just talk to people, maybe if you have questions or want to continue the discussion on people's poster boards, that's awesome. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. Oh, there it is in the chat. All right.